The night she passed the bar exam, I was outside washing dishes in the restaurant parking lot because I'd taken an extra shift to help pay her rent. When I called to congratulate her, she didn't answer. Instead, I saw a photo of her on social media kissing another man under a banner that read Future Attorneys of America. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just lost the woman I loved. I'd been used. My name's Evan Carter, 31, from Ohio, and for 5 years. I worked 3 jobs: bartender, delivery driver, and janitor, so my girlfriend, Melissa, could chase her dream of becoming a lawyer. We met in college. She was brilliant, ambitious, and broke. I was studying business, but I dropped out my senior year when my dad got sick. Melissa promised me it wouldn't matter, that we'd build our future together once she graduated, so I worked. Every penny I earned went toward her tuition, her books, her endless bar prep courses. I ate leftovers from the diner, patched my shoes with tape, and pretended I didn't notice when she started talking to me less and posting photos that didn't include me. Mum warned me. She always did. She's chasing something. Honey, and I don't think it's love. But I didn't listen. I thought love meant sacrifice. Then, the night Melissa became an official attorney, I found out what my sacrifices were really worth. She didn't answer my calls for 3 days. When she finally did, her voice was cold, detached. Evan, you deserve someone who matches your goals, she said. We're just in different places now. Different places. She was moving to New York to work at a corporate law firm. I was still scrubbing floors in Dayton. I hung up without saying a word. For the first time in years, I didn't go to work. I sat on the porch, staring at the empty street, wondering how I'd wasted half a decade believing someone else's dream mattered more than my own. That's when Mum came out with 2 mugs of coffee and said something strange. Evan, she began softly, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. About your father. About what he left behind. I frowned. Mum, we went through everything after he died. There was nothing left but debt. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. No, son. There was one thing he didn't want you to know about until the time was right. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. She reached into her pocket and handed me a small, sealed envelope with my name on it written in my father's handwriting. And that envelope changed everything. I stared at the envelope for a long time, afraid to open it. My father had died 6 years earlier, leaving behind nothing but unpaid hospital bills and a worn-out pickup truck. What could possibly be inside that would matter now? Mum just watched me, her hands folded around her coffee mug. He made me promise to give it to you when you'd hit rock bottom, she said quietly. He said you'd know what that meant. Well, I muttered bitterly. If rock bottom means being dumped by the woman I practically sold my life for, I guess I qualify. I tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, bank key, and a handwritten note. For the dream I couldn't chase. And the son who never stopped trying. Dad, there was also a small sticky note attached. First National Bank, safe deposit box number 317. I blinked at it, confused. A safe deposit box? I didn't even know Dad had one. Mum smiled faintly. He didn't talk about it much. Said it was for the business that never got off the ground. I figured it was just one of his ideas. But something in that note, the dream I couldn't chase, kept echoing in my head. The next morning, I went to the bank. The clerk took my ID, checked the paperwork, and led me into a small private room. When she placed the metal box in front of me, my hands actually trembled. Inside were 2 things, a leather-bound journal and a deed. The deed was the first thing that caught my eye. Carter Auto Restoration, LLC, dated 1996. My father's name was listed as the sole owner. I'd heard him talk about starting his own garage years ago, but I thought it had fallen apart long before I was born. Then I opened the journal. The first page was full of sketches, car frames, engine layouts, notes about a custom part design. But the second page made me sit up straight. It read, Patent application filed Carter Performance Systems, April 3, 2002, a patent. I flipped through the next few pages, each one covered in notes and diagrams. There were receipts for prototype parts. And at the very back an official letter stamped U.S. Patent Office. The patent had been approved. My father had invented something. Something real. Something valuable. But it didn't end there. Inside a small envelope tucked into the journal's final page was a but still readable made out to my father from Crenshaw Automotive Technologies, one of the biggest car part suppliers in the Midwest. The amount was $40,000. And next to the check was another note. Pending royalties annual agreement to renew in perpetuity. I felt my chest tighten. My father's failed dream wasn't a failure at all. It was an investment one I'd just inherited, and someone had been quietly paying for it all these years. I left the bank with my father's journal clutched to my chest, my head spinning. $40,000. From a patent, and pending royalties that renewed every year. None of it made sense. My father had never mentioned a single word about owning a patent, much less one still earning money. When I got home, Mum was at the kitchen table sorting through bills. I dropped the journal in front of her. "Did you know about this?" She looked down, then up at me with tired eyes. "I knew he worked on something before you were born. A new kind of transmission part," he said, "more efficient, cheaper to produce. But when the company he worked for went under, he stopped talking about it." I thought it was over. "It wasn't," I said. "Crenshaw Automotive's been paying royalties for years." Her mouth fell open. "Then, where's the money?" That question hit me like a punch. I flipped through the journal again, scanning every page until I found another note. Scrawled near the end, "Payments deposited under trust account. Ask for Mr. Dylan Crenshaw Legal." The next morning, I was sitting in a sleek office across from Alan Dillon, the head of Crenshaw's legal department. He was polite but guarded, his fingers tapping on a polished oak desk. "I'm surprised it took this long for someone to come forward," he said. "Your father's patent has been one of our company's quiet backbones for nearly 20 years. Quiet backbones," I repeated. He nodded. "The Carter gearshift module. We've sold millions of vehicles with that part. Your father's royalties, well, they've accumulated." He opened a file, slid it toward me. My eyes widened at the balance sheet, $3.4 million in unpaid transfers. Sitting in a dormant trust account since my father's death, I felt dizzy. $3 million. "Actually, a bit more once you account for interest," Dylan said. "It's yours, Mr. Carter. Your father never cancelled the beneficiary clause. You're listed as sole heir." I didn't even realize I was shaking until he added, "You'll need to sign the transfer documents. But everything's legitimate." I walked out of that office with my whole world turned upside down. All those nights I'd spent scrubbing floors, all those years I thought my life was over. My father had been quietly setting me up for a future I never imagined. When I told Mum, she cried real tears this time. "He always wanted you to have choices he didn't," she whispered. "He just didn't live long enough to tell you how." That night, as I sat staring at the check transfer papers, one thought burned in my mind. Melissa, she'd left me because I had nothing, and now, I had more than I'd ever dreamed of. But something inside me said, this wasn't over. That there was still more to my father's story, and I was about to find out just how deep his secret went. For a few weeks, life felt like something out of a dream. I paid off Mum's mortgage, bought her a new car, and reopened Dad's old garage under a new name, Carter Performance Works. Business was booming, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about the next paycheck, but peace never lasts long. One afternoon, I was finishing up paperwork when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen froze me in place, Melissa. I hadn't heard from her in nearly a year. My gut told me to ignore it, but curiosity won. "Evan," she said, her voice smooth, practiced, like no time had passed. "I heard about your shop. I'm really proud of you." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't even want me when I was cleaning grease off diner floors. What changed?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "I made mistakes. I just want to talk. Maybe meet for coffee." I almost said no. But something in her tone, A strange urgency made me hesitate. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a cafe downtown. She looked the same, polished, confident. Her hair pulled into that perfect bun she wore during her law exams. But her eyes told a different story. They looked scared. "I didn't come just to apologize," she said quietly. "I came to warn you." "Warn me? About what?" She glanced around, then leaned in. "Crenshaw Automotive. The company paying your royalties there under federal investigation, fraud, patent laundering, offshore accounts. Your father's design is at the center of it." I stared at her, stunned. "That's impossible. They've been paying us legally for years." Melissa shook her head. "The patent wasn't just yours, Evan. Someone else tried to claim ownership, a former Crenshaw engineer named Martin Hale. He disappeared 10 years ago, and his family's been suing for his royalties ever since. The company covered it up by keeping your father's name quiet. Now, it's all unraveling." My stomach dropped. "So what does that mean for me?" "It means you're the public face of a scandal you didn't create," she said. "And if Crenshaw falls, they'll drag your name with them." I sat there, frozen, the noise of the cafe fading into a blur. Melissa reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Evan, they'll come after you. You need to protect yourself." That night, I went home and pulled out my father's journal again, searching for answers. Near the very end, written in faint pencil, I found one final note I'd never noticed before. "If they ever come for you, find the second box." I hid it where your mother and I first met. My heart started pounding. I looked up at Mum's old photo on the wall, the one taken at Riverbend Park. I knew exactly where I had to go next. The next morning, I drove to Riverbend Park, the place where Mum said she'd met Dad decades ago. The air was cold, the grass still damp from the early rain. As I walked toward the old picnic area near the riverbank, my heart hammered against my ribs. Dad's journal had been clear where your mother and I first met. Mum had told me that story countless times. She'd dropped her purse during a thunderstorm, and Dad had helped her gather everything before the wind carried it into the water. It happened right by the large oak tree overlooking the bend in the river. I found the tree easily. It was still there, its roots stretching out like fingers clutching the earth. I knelt by the base and began digging. After only a few minutes, my shovel hit metal. It was an old toolbox, rusted and heavy, sealed shut with a latch that had half disintegrated. My hands shook as I forced it open. Inside was another envelope, thick and yellowed with age, along with a stack of documents tied with string. The first paper I pulled out wasn't a patent or a receipt. It was a letter from my father. "If you're reading this, son, then you've found what I couldn't protect in my lifetime." The patent was never just about money. It was about ownership. Crenshaw used my design to hide something much bigger, a secret account tied to illegal military contracts. When I realized it, I tried to pull out. "They threatened me and your mother. I hid the truth to keep you safe. If they ever come after you, take this to the press." Below his signature was a set of USB drives and one final page, a handwritten confession signed by Martin Hale, the engineer Melissa had mentioned. He hadn't disappeared. He'd been forced to sign away his rights under threat, and my father had been protecting his family ever since. I felt my throat tighten. The truth wasn't just about inheritance, it was about justice. Before I could process it, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. A black SUV pulled up near the tree line. Two men in suits stepped out, scanning the area. One of them called out, "Mr. Carter, we need to speak with you. About your father's files." My instincts screamed run. I grabbed the box and sprinted for my truck, mud flying behind me. The men shouted, but I didn't stop. I drove straight to the local newspaper office, bursting through the doors with the box in my arms. Within hours, the story broke. Nationwide Crenshaw Automotive exposed for decades of fraud, bribery, and coercion. My father's name, once forgotten, was cleared. The following week, federal agents raided the company. Melissa's warning had saved my life. Dad's secret had changed mine forever. Now, every morning when I unlock the doors to my garage, I see the framed letter hanging above the counter, the one that started it all. for the dream I couldn't chase, and the son who never stopped trying. Dad's dream wasn't just about building engines. It was about building truth, and in the end, that truth made me richer than money ever could.